Uh, Today, since we're a couple minutes over the hour now, I'll just kind of start kicking off. We're going to be talking about rolling the dice on volunteer appreciation. This is kind of our topic for the day. Super excited to have Jordan join us, and I'll introduce her in a moment. But in the meantime, my name's Gung. Like I mentioned, I'm one of the co-founders here at Civic Champs and the CEO here. We've been at this for about 7 years now, a little over seven. So it's been a while. And yeah, this is my third tech company that I've started, and my favorite one because I get to hang out with you guys. So, um, and with that, here's Jordan. Jordan's with the Education Partnership, where she is a volunteer coordinator, and she manages about 3,000 volunteers every year with TEP. They have an awesome mission where in Pittsburgh they provide school supplies to students and teachers in under-resourced schools at no cost to them. So as you all know, oftentimes teachers have to pay out of pocket, right, to support their students in the best way that they can. And the Education Partnership alleviates some of that sort of resource demand on our teachers. So with that, yeah, Jordan, do you want to introduce yourself as well?
Yeah, thank you so much, Gang, and thank you all so much for being here today. I'm so excited to be speaking with you all. As Gang said, I am the volunteer coordinator at the Education Partnership. We are located in the west end of Pittsburgh, and we serve the eight-county region of southwestern Pennsylvania. We provide school supplies to students and teachers in under-resourced schools at no extra cost to them. If you were not aware, Pennsylvania teachers, should I say, actually spends the most money out of pocket for their school supplies. And once our founder, Justin Brown, learned that, he wanted to come and help those under-resourced schools to ensure that teachers aren't spending as much as they are out of pocket for their school supplies. So we provide school supplies in our three different programs: our Teacher Resource Center, our STEAM Hub, and our Adopt a School program, all of which need volunteer support. So each year I run around 3,000 volunteers to ensure that those three programs keep running, and do different activities regarding those different programs, whether that be building examples for our STEAM Hub, assisting during teacher shopping, or building Adopt a School kits, whatever those programs need, I'm here to support them. Um, we also, or I try to convert volunteers to donors as well to kind of maximize their volunteer hours into grants and coming up with different ideas, and to encourage volunteers to donate. Fun facts about me: I graduated from American University in 2023, and this year I was named one of Pittsburgh Business Times 2026 30 Under 30 honorees, which is very exciting, and I'm very honored. Um, and with that, I'm so excited to talk to you all today about volunteer appreciation.
Yeah, Jordan's super impressive, and it's always been fun to work with the Education Partnership. I've actually gotten to visit your location, which it's always a rare treat for me, right? So, a couple logistics before we have Jordan take over here in terms of the presentation, and so we will be sharing the slides and recordings afterwards. And so if you registered, you'll get an email with all of that information. The presentation itself will be probably 30 to 40 minutes, and then we'll have Q&A. If you do have questions, I'm going to be watching chat the whole time. And so whether Jordan kind of gets to it in the moment, but if not, we'll always make sure we circle back to anything that we didn't get to, and then we'll talk about that at the end. So please put stuff in chat if you have a moment. And then, yeah, real quickly on Civic Champs, I recognize a lot of you on the call, so this will be a little bit of old news, right? But we support nonprofits like the Education Partnership in terms of volunteer management with our software, with helping with recruiting, onboarding, scheduling, engaging, and retaining. And the real goal is really to help people recover their time back, right, by making each step of that easy. And so if you're, interested in learn more, you can look on Capterra. We voted best ease of use and best value. You can ask questions in chat if you really want to. There are some customers, of course, on the call. And then, yeah, this is some screenshots of what it looks like. And then, of course, I'll leave my contact at the end for folks that want to learn more. So with that, let me let Jordan take over and we'll dive into the presentation.
Thank you again. One thing I do want to mention before we get started is our office is also a warehouse. So if you hear noise while I'm talking, I do apologize. But people are moving and grooving up there, making sure we get the things done we need to do. On that note, I'm excited to chat with you all today about volunteer appreciation.
Mm, perfect. Looks like it came through.
Okay. So, if y'all want to put in the chat, why is volunteer appreciation so important? I'm curious to see what some of y'all have to think about volunteer appreciation, or even different ways that you recognize your volunteers already.
Hmm.
And Gang, if you don't mind reading out some of the answers.
Yeah, of course. Samantha just wrote, keep people engaged. Christy, oh, is coming in fast and furious. Retention, will, they want to know they're valued, keeps interest and retention, appreciated, seen, belonging, sense of community. Staff can't do it alone. We achieve so. So Eden from Placer Land Trust, help people see the value. Yeah.
Well, thank you all so much. Yes, those are wonderful ways to show appreciation or why we should show volunteers that we appreciate them. A good way to think about volunteer appreciation is through the acronym DICE, which I came up with, um, as a way to remember the different aspects of volunteer appreciation better. It is important to note that each aspect is equally important and valuable, and it helps to grow your volunteer thinking base. Because sometimes it can be hard if you have just one avenue exploring different ways for volunteer appreciation. So, what does DICE mean? DICE stands for diversity, inclusivity, creativity, and externally. So, diversity, making sure the volunteer appreciation is shown in different ways. Inclusivity, making sure you are including volunteers in the conversation and appreciating them how they like. Creativity, making it fun. Brainstorm different ways to show appreciation and flex your creativity while doing so. And it's always good to show your volunteers some love externally. So, appreciating volunteers on social media platforms and other outward facing avenues. So, let's get into it a little bit. Diversity, the D. So, it's important to showcase volunteer appreciation in different ways. By having multiple ways to highlight volunteers, you make sure volunteers have a mix of more personalized and generalized recognition. And why is this important? Your dedicated volunteers might remember how they were highlighted in the past, and having different tactics allows for more opportunities to be recognized. So, some of the things that we do right now at the Education Partnership include our volunteer newsletter, social media posts, and thank you emails, all of which I'll show examples of in the next
Hmm.
couple of slides. But in our volunteer newsletter, every month I send the month's volunteers and the 2 months prior. So the volunteers who have participated in some sort of volunteer opportunity in the last 90 days, I send out a volunteer newsletter for them, highlighting the different metrics we've accomplished that month, whether that be building Adopt a School kits, building STEAM Possible packs, or how many teachers we have served. And throughout that volunteer newsletter, I show off all the different volunteer groups who have come in, whether that be just group pictures or a volunteer highlight and a volunteer spotlight, any way to showcase all the different volunteers that come in, and making sure that they're all recognized, because it can be hard to just recognize everyone when you can easily just focus on one group. So, and it allows for all of the volunteers that past month and the months prior to see the hard work that we're continually doing and how we wouldn't be able to accomplish all of this without them. Along the same vein, after a volunteer opportunity, I send the volunteers a thank you email. So in the thank you email, it will list the different activities they participated in and will include a picture of the volunteer group just to show them again that we are so grateful for everything they'd helped us accomplish. Without them, we would not be able to get the stuff done that we're able to do. At the Education Partnership, we're a small but mighty staff of around 20 people. So without them, we truly would not be able to get everything done that we need to get done within a day. And then social media posts. I'll go into detail a little bit more about our social media and how we use it and a couple slides down the line. But again, it's always important to show some volunteers some love on social media. Inclusivity. Volunteers are essential to your organization and they complete so much work and take away tasks that staff members would otherwise have to do alone. So it's important to include volunteers in the conversation and consult them on what they think works and what doesn't work. This has been super helpful for me, especially as I was starting my tenure here at the Education Partnership. Making volunteers feel included in the conversation is very important. And knowing that you are actually listening to what they have to say is something that they've truly value. So it strengthens your relationship with them, not only professionally and but personally. And this is important because some volunteers prefer the big gestures and recognition, while others prefer kind of staying just behind the scenes. So it's important to take that into consideration while recognizing your volunteers. So we have a volunteer advisory council here at the Education Partnership where we have some core volunteers that come quite often, whether they're from a corporate group or individual volunteers. And I ask them during meetings what they think. An example of a time that they really had a lot of input is our Volunteer Appreciation Week. As you all know, in April, Volunteer Appreciation Week is widely recognized. And before, we used to buy food and have like a little bit of party during that week. But our VAC told us and let us know that not always the core group of volunteers were there to feel appreciated during that week, whether they just weren't registered or they weren't able to come. Some first timers were being recognized and getting all of the glory during that week instead, and they would prefer that we just focus on small ways of appreciation rather than those big gestures. They did not want us to spend extra money on them when we could be spending it in our programs, and they think that a more personalized gestures of appreciation are more valued rather than these big gestures. So we changed that and we made it just small things like sending birthday cards, sending thank you cards, ways that are more personal for our volunteers to feel recognized. We also have a slideshow that plays in our office constantly. And on that, we have a slide that has every volunteer who has given or volunteered 25 hours of service from May to May. And personalized certificates, I'm going to get into an example of that in just a second of how to recognize a volunteer. So on the left, you'll see one of our dedicated volunteers. His name is Jacob. He volunteers with PNC and is able to, with his volunteer hours, get us volunteer grants. Jacob completed so many hours that he was recognized as PNC's Southwestern PA Volunteer of the Year, not only last year, but this year as well. And they had a ceremony for Jacob. They honored him at PNC, but he told me that all he wanted was a certificate. He just wanted something physical to recognize the work that he did. So I hopped on Canva and I made him one. You'll see here, this is me giving him his certificate, where he was able to he quite literally put it in a frame and hung it in his house to show that people appreciate him and he appreciates us for all the hard work that we kind of do together. So it was a special moment that Jacob and I were able to share where he was able to be recognized for all the hard work that he did for TEP. On the right, you'll see an example of our volunteer newsletter. So at the top are different volunteer groups that came in during that month with their names so they can be recognized, whether it be from their company or the school that they came in, that they're able to see exactly who is able to volunteer. And below that is our volunteer spotlight. So typically I choose a unique volunteer group or volunteer specifically to highlight during that month. So last month, or in February, should I say, was Big Brothers Big Sisters of Greater Pittsburgh. We love to showcase the regular volunteers who come in, but it's great to showcase those individual groups as well. And especially being able to rate their specific work in that newsletter is super important because it shows that you remember them and remember what they did, and even providing a statistic, like they were able to palletize X amount of erasers or pack X amount of backpacks, whatever it is, makes it a little more personal. And included, you don't see this part in the screenshot, but the picture of them is also down below that as well. And then this is an example of that thank you email. So you'll see it says thank you for volunteering and then the different activities they did. completed while they were here, and then the picture of them as well. Just again, to throw a little thank you in their inbox to say thank you so much for volunteering and for completing these different activities. It was super, super helpful. And oftentimes I've received replies back on these emails, um, just appreciating us back. So it's another little personal thing that you can send to those volunteers. All right, let's move on to the other two letters in the acronym. We've got creativity. So piggybacking off of diversity a little bit, using the creative side of your brain helps enhance volunteer appreciation and could even bring you closer to your volunteer base. It allows you to have fun with creating different ways to appreciate those who donate their time as well. I know sometimes you're in the weeds a bit, you're looking at data, you're looking at different ways that you can improve your programs or improve your work. But I feel that finding a source of creativity in your life, with especially with volunteer appreciation, I think that's the easiest one to do. Helps me break up my day a little bit and makes the work even more fun. So that's why I have here Canva is your friend. I use Canva for all of the fun volunteer appreciation things that we do. Like you saw with Jacob's certificate, I use Canva for that. I use Canva for the slideshow that we play at our office. So any sort of tool that you are really comfortable with and feel like you can use to the best of your ability, I think is super, super helpful when it comes to the creativity aspect of this. And why is this important? Because using your creative side allows for you to diversify your appreciation pool. New creative ways to showcase volunteer appreciation also make sure that you aren't showing appreciation the same way over and over again. I always got super worried about showcasing the same group multiple times on the volunteer newsletter or giving them the same thing, whether that be a banner or whatever it is to show appreciation, because oftentimes volunteers will remember you remember them and they remember you and you remember all the things you did for them. So showing different ways of appreciation and diversifying it a little bit just breaks it up and allows you to have fun, but it also allows them to feel appreciated in different ways. So some ways that we do that are through our birthday and holiday cards. Each year and each month, I write handwritten birthday cards to all of the volunteers. As I said earlier, we recognize volunteers with 25 hours or more of service in our fiscal year. So I have their names, their birth dates. Thank you, Civic Champs, for including that. That's how I get their birth dates. And their addresses. And I will write them a birthday card, just thanking them for their hard work at TEP and wishing them a happy year ahead so that they know that we're not only recognizing them as like an entity to do volunteer work for us, but also as an individual. And the birthday cards and the holiday cards have been the thing that I've gotten the most positive feedback over. It really does add that special extra touch to volunteers to make them feel appreciated. Every time I send a birthday card, I either get an email or a text message or a thank you in person from the volunteer, because you're remembering them on their special day, and that's very important and very wholesome, I would say, for them. Same with the holiday cards. I'll send out a holiday card sometime in December, just thanking them and wishing them a happy holidays and a happy new year. I also made graduation certificates for some of the special education students that we have volunteer at TEP. So we oftentimes have many life skills and special education students that volunteer with us. And at times they will age out of those programs. And PA, once you turn 21, you age out of those programs. And they hold a graduation ceremony whenever they age out. And they'll have that big graduation ceremony, but typically that's the last time we see them at TEP. So I gave them all graduation certificates from TEP as well to showcase how much we appreciated them and their hard work, because they truly did so much for us. And not only did they form a special bond with me and with our staff members for being here for a whole school year, they also completed so much wonderful work and grew as human beings that I wanted to recognize them for all those efforts as well. Moving on to the last
Well,
letter in our
Jordan, before
acronym.
we
Yeah.
move on, there was one question that came in from Sunshine.
Okay.
I guess this is more around the I,
Mm-hmm.
but she asked, do you ever ask volunteer what their appreciation language is? Kind of like a love language? You
Ooh.
said, yeah, like how did they want to be appreciated? So yeah, curious to hear your thoughts.
I haven't asked them for their love language specifically. Um, as in, do they prefer gift giving? Do they prefer words of affirmation? Whatever that may be. I've never asked that question specifically,
Yeah.
but I know that, for example, our VAC last year said, we don't really want like anything for the holidays. Don't worry about it. Maybe we can just get together. So we went to like a VAC happy hour and we got
Hmm.
together to kind of just appreciate the year and appreciate each other because our meetings are online, so we're not often actually together in a room.
Yep.
So they all like the quality time. So that's one part of I know the love languages that they all really appreciated. But that's a really great question and
Yeah.
something that I'm going to start asking in the future.
Yeah. And back just to be I think yeah, is that volunteer
Advisory
advisory
council.
committee? Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay. Great.
All right. Okay. I will move on to the E. So externally. Show volunteers the love externally. Highlighting volunteers and their hard work externally allows for not only your organization staff to appreciate them, but also for the community at large to appreciate them. So, why is this important? As many of you know, many companies have some sort of CSR or corporate social responsibility policy. Um, Posting about their volunteer force externally allows them to have free press in a way to show off the work that they've been doing and how they've been helping their community. And it makes them more inclined to come back. I know oftentimes we will post about volunteers, whether that be in a big group post about different volunteer groups for a month or for a year, whatever that may be, or in the individual posts. Showing the hard work that they've been doing has been something that's been very beneficial for our relationship to the company at large and with the volunteers specifically as well. But I notice mostly with the company at large that that really works. And ways that we show our volunteers love externally is through our blog posts, our newsletters, whether it be my volunteer newsletter or our TEP newsletter, or through our social media. Okay, so I'm going to show you some examples of some of the things I talked about. You'll see in the top left, those are those students who received those graduation certificates. They were so excited that they took a picture with them outside out in front of our logo because they loved coming to TEP and that made them feel extra special that they were appreciated from not only their school, but from TEP as well. And right next to that, where it says newsletter, this is an example of a newsletter story from our TEP newsletter highlighting volunteers. So we'll typically have a picture of them all. Similar to the volunteer newsletter, we will write a little synopsis of the things that they did, where they came from, what their mission is, to highlight how appreciative we are of them coming in. And the one below that is our blog posts. So writing a little tidbit and getting an interview from volunteers is super helpful because it also gives you a little bit of insight exactly on what they're looking for and what they appreciate about TEP. Sometimes you think their favorite activity is not actually their favorite activity. So getting to interview them in this way and connect with them, I think is super helpful and super important. When I've interviewed volunteers, whether that be for our TikTok page or our social media, I've learned a lot about what they enjoy at TEP and what sticks out to them to kind of build on that with other companies or volunteers as well. And again, highlighting the work that they're doing, naming them by name is super important because I think it, again, personalizes it a little more. So it's important to post volunteers on all social media platforms. At TEP, we use Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn are our main social media platforms. We also use TikTok, but we don't highlight volunteers as much on TikTok as we do on our other social media platforms. But it's important to note that some social media platforms will have more success reaching volunteers and their companies than others. We see the most success with volunteer posts on our LinkedIn. So this is an example of one of our LinkedIn posts. On the LinkedIn post I have highlighted here, we had a 35.6% engagement rate with volunteers, and the percentage of likes by volunteers was 30%. If you know which volunteers volunteered on a certain day, it might be a good idea to tag them specifically. I do this a lot, whether you actually tag them in the wording of the post or tag them just on the pictures. I think that's super, super helpful and super beneficial because it showcases them specifically, especially if they're from a corporate group. I find this to be good because oftentimes the corporations get a lot of recognition, but not always the volunteers who actually donated their time. So tagging them specifically is really helpful. And it will lead to more reposts on your company profile or on their personal profile. So it's, again, great to tag them specifically. Collaboration posts are also a fun way to highlight the volunteers. If you have a program that is the most front facing or that a company works with the most, pitch a collaboration post. We just posted one not too long ago with the Duquesne Light Company because they donated some of their supplies as they're moving offices, and we filmed some content for our Instagram and for our LinkedIn for that. So again, most companies have a corporate social responsibility policy and want to highlight their volunteer work. These posts also often do well engagement-wise. Our reposts on volunteer collaboration posts are often higher compared to other volunteer posts. And also, don't be afraid to post about volunteers on your personal LinkedIn. I do this quite a bit where I post about our volunteers and highlight them because I think it's an extra special way to do so as it's coming from you personally rather than your organization's profile. I oftentimes will highlight different volunteer groups to showcase more people and different work because, like I said, you might have a program that's more front facing. And so when I post on LinkedIn, I'm able to highlight all three of our programs more equally rather than in the height of adopt a school season, it's typically all adopt a school posts. So diversifying that a little bit. And it will help connect you more directly with your volunteer groups and strengthen that relationship as well. On my LinkedIn posts, I typically get more reposts and comments from individual volunteers rather than their company's account. And this helps make social media more relational versus transactional. I know that I've connected a lot with volunteers on LinkedIn, and that's been a way where I've been able to get to know them better. Obviously, you have those conversations when you're with them in person, but highlighting in them and connecting them outside of that volunteer opportunity, I think has really gone the extra mile in my relationship with different volunteers that we have. So it's been extra special, in my opinion, and had quite a bit of success when it comes to metrics as well. All right, so just a little bit of a review and a recap for DICE. The diversity, it allows you to have a varied repertoire and different avenues to go down when it comes to volunteer appreciation. Inclusivity, where you listen to what the volunteers have to say, consult them, and value their input. And creativity, so just finding different ways to make these volunteers feel a more unique and personal appreciation and using whatever resource, whether that be Canva or something else, to do that. And being able to showcase volunteers externally. So some sort of outward volunteer post or volunteer recognition that is good for your marketing as well as the company's marketing, whether that be through a collab or just recognition in general. So thank you all so much. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to listen to me. I'm so curious to see what y'all have to think in your questions.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jordan. And yeah, please, obviously Sunshine put a question in on chat. So encourage you all to think about the DICE framework and what other questions you might have. And so it looks like maybe we have one. Oh yeah, so Tracy said, um, typically how many volunteers do you have on your advisory council? And then maybe I'll add to that, which is who do you have on your advisory council?
Both great questions. So we currently have 4 volunteers on our volunteer advisory council. So we have a teacher that is not a part of our partner schools, but volunteers quite regularly at TEP, a teacher that volunteers quite regularly that is a part of our partner schools. So they give us that double perspective of being a teacher that we benefit in our programs and also being a teacher that volunteers at TEP. And then we have an individual volunteer who comes just by themselves, who is not a part of a company or a corporation. They just enjoy volunteering at TEP, and then a corporate volunteer. So we try to get a little bit of perspective from all of the different groups that we typically see come and volunteer at TEP. So corporations, I would say, are the majority of what we see volunteering. Individuals are a huge chunk too. And like I said, we
Mm.
oftentimes have a lot of school groups as well that come and volunteer. So having that teacher perspective, not only for their students, but for themselves, I think is really beneficial. And they all provide really wonderful insight. We actually have a meeting next week, and I'm super excited to hear what they have to say about our different topics. So I would say choose volunteers that you trust as well,
Mhm.
not just the ones who come quite frequently. If I had different volunteers on my volunteer advisory council, I don't know if their input would have as much of an impact, but they have really helped shape our volunteer program in a lot of different ways.
And do they serve a term just like a board?
They do not. They are here. They've been here, I believe, since we started the VAC, which I believe was in 2023. It was just before my time at TEP, and they've been on it for for since it started. Yeah.
Got it. And I guess before we go to different questions, Susan had something that's, how often do you all meet?
We meet quarterly. So we meet once a quarter. We have meetings typically in January, April, July, and November. So we try to space it out as well because if we met more frequently, we wouldn't have as much conversation in terms of what we're looking for. So for example, like I said, we have a meeting next week. I'm asking them about summer volunteering. We also have our audit coming up. So different activities that they enjoy doing during the audit period, what works, what doesn't work, to kind of shape that before our audit. So whatever the timely situation is for that month, I think, or that quarter, should I say, I think is very beneficial.
Very cool. And then, so moving on to a kind of different topic, what is a good way to reach corporations? You guys have a lot of success with corporate partners, and so how do you reach them? How do you engage?
Great question. So I would recommend that if you already have a relationship with a corporation, maximizing on that. So you heard me talk a lot about our relationship with PNC. PNC has something called Grow Up Great grants that we actually benefit a lot from. So depending on how many volunteer hours a group participates in, they will donate a grant to us.
Mhm.
So we have a contact there who I talk with monthly about what volunteer groups want to come in from PNC. So they are like the liaison between us and those groups more specifically. Now, there are some people that I work with that come every month that we kind of just skip the middleman and work together. But oftentimes maximizing those contacts and those corporations you already have. Another way, starting new relationships that I've seen is very beneficial, using your board. We have board members from different industries that
Mm.
we have benefited a lot from. And whether that be working with their company, working with somebody else in that industry, maybe not the company they work for, has been super helpful, or even just their friends, people that they know, maximizing their relationships and their contacts for your benefit has been very helpful for me, just in networking, but in growing our volunteer program. If there are companies that are thinking about giving you grants, ask them to come volunteer.
Yep.
It will help benefit their relationship to you and more likely for you to get that grant if they step foot in your facility. So just finding different ways, not only to engage these corporations, and they're like, oh, I'm not sure, maybe I can't meet on Zoom or I can't meet in person. Just persistence, I think, is also good. Sometimes I feel people don't like bothering people over and over again, but if you're persistent enough, people are going to answer you. Like they're going to get to a point where they want to hear, they're going to want to talk to you, and you're going to want to talk to them, where it will work out.
Yeah. And I would say, just being on boards, oftentimes you're asked about fundraising asks, right? Whether to give personally or, to fundraise. And volunteering can be a much easier ask and easier way to say yes and will motivate actually the board to also donate more later financially. So I think that's great. That's great.
Yeah.
All right. And then the next question is from Colby. For organizations with limited or no dedicated budget for volunteer appreciation, how do you think they can best show appreciation apart from social media?
That's a great question too. I don't have a very big budget when it comes to volunteerism, and even part of the budget we have, I don't really use a whole lot, because I come up with those fun, creative ways to show appreciation. So, like I said, when I showed off those certificates, I think that's something fun and easy that does not cost a lot of money because you already have the printer ink for your organization to use. So finding ways like that. Even like I said, handwritten things, you typically already have those supplies in your office to show off that volunteer appreciation. And I think it's important to note that, like I said, with the VAC, not everybody wants stuff. If they love you, they love your mission, they love the hard work
Mhm.
that you're doing. Oftentimes, they don't want you to go and spend tons of money on them. They want that to go back to the programs. So showing off, if you have some sort of like poster that you can use showing off those names, or even just like announcing to everyone in your office, hey, it's this person's birthday. Go wish them happy birthday. Let's go sing to them. Something super simple, I think, goes a long way over the bigger gestures, in my opinion.
That's awesome. And I saw Tracy put in chat that she gets a grant from Dairy Queen for dilly bars. And so maybe another way to appreciate
Nice.
ice cream, which is pretty cool.
Love that.
And then so Christina asked, what kinds of things do your volunteers do and how do you train them?
Great question. So, depending on what program they work with, depends on and changes the training a little bit. Some things are more simple. I use our STEAM program, for example. With our STEAM Possible Packs, things that we need for that program are less involved. It's counting out different supplies. It's making examples, which all have instructions that they can continually use every time they work on there. So they're not like kind of forced to memorize everything or know how the program goes. That is more low stakes. If they make a mistake, somebody else can fix it for them either that day or in a different volunteer group. So if you have a program that's more low stakes and you don't have as much time to train them, I would say do something like that. Whereas our other two programs, our Teacher Resource Center and our Adopt a School program, are a little bit more involved. Adopt a School program, I would say, requires the most amount of training because it's the most specific. So when they build an Adopt a School kit, everything has to be the same in each kit because they are going to students in schools. And we want every child to
Hmm.
receive the same thing. We don't want anyone to feel left out. Now, inevitably students are going to trade different things because they want things. That's fine. It's already been given to them at that point. They can mess with it however they want. But we here, that is the program that we focus on the most. So having little cards printed out in front of each supply, we'll go over it with them. We'll show them the whole process, do the assembly line, but just having those visual reminders is really important for things that are more specific. And then we quality check every single kit. So that's also something that's a little more involved because every volunteer has to check a different supply to make sure that the accurate amount is in there. We do a lot of supervision when this program is running as well to make sure that nothing is going wrong, or if they have any
Hmm.
questions, they have a resource there. But I think while you're scheduling that out, including that training time is something that's really important. So budgeting in an extra 10 minutes maybe that we're going to go through this process to ensure that everything's done correctly the first time. And just communicating that with other staff, I think is super important because some are ready to go, like, let's go, let's get this done. And just making sure that we take time to ensure that everything's done right.
And Jordan, do you you know, we had this on a different webinar, so it just reminded me, but do you ever leverage your experienced volunteers to help you with that process, to pair them up in a group or as buddies?
We do, and that happens the most with our teacher resource center, I will say. On
Hmm.
Tuesday afternoons, we have a dedicated group of women that come in and volunteer every teacher shopping Tuesday. If we have new volunteers, we say, if you don't remember, that's okay. These four women are already trained. Like they know what's going on. Ask them if you have questions, because oftentimes our staff is running around during that period, grabbing stuff from our warehouse, checking teachers in, whatever it may be. So we're not as hands-on involved during that day. So having those more experienced volunteers being there to help guide the new folks is really super helpful and also ensures that the program just
Hmm.
runs smoothly that day.
Yeah.
So I would say absolutely leverage those folks who are coming more frequently because they know the programs probably just as much as you do.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. And fun fact from the other webinar was one of the professors shared that you get a 14% retention bump with by pairing the experienced folks as well. So um, Kelsey had a question around how do you balance time spent at volunteer events and time spent on volunteer appreciation or outreach?
Great question. This is something that when I started at TEP, I struggled to find that balance at first and making sure that you take the time for everything. So a lot of our volunteer events are held in-house, which makes it easier for
Hmm.
me when it comes
Hmm.
to splitting my time. Because when I have a break, I just train them. They're just starting their thing. I'm going to run to my desk and do research on a specific volunteer appreciation thing that I'm really into, or working on that Canva project that I'm working on, or even researching different groups that are going that are coming, or writing my volunteer plans or whatever it may be. So I think like trying to split your time more evenly, putting that on your calendar, I think is also super beneficial. Put that focus time on your calendar. Tell people, hey, I'm busy right now. Do not bother me. I'm trying to get this thing done. I think is really helpful too. And not only setting your boundaries when it comes to that, but actually holding yourself accountable to getting that work done. So just, especially if you have a heavy volunteer day and you know that day might be a little bit of a wash when it comes to things at your desk, recognizing that and trying to split your time more evenly throughout the rest of the week.
Yeah, oh, that's great. Um, and then Lee had a question on how to, similar to how to find corporations, but just generally, how do you find new volunteers? How are you recruiting?
Yeah, so one way I do it is through another website called Idealist, where I post our volunteer opportunities on there as well. I have them re-register with us through Civic Champs, but that's just another thing that people go and scroll on a lot to look at that. So finding another platform to easily also submit your volunteer shifts on, I think is super helpful just when it comes to awareness, but also leveraging the different things that are going on in your community at a specific time. For example, in a couple of weeks, Pittsburgh is holding the NFL draft. So we have been working hard to not only kind of showcase our relationship with the Steelers, but also showcasing like different ways that we help our Pittsburgh community because people are looking to get involved with draft stuff. And that actually has benefited us. One of those Tuesday women that come and volunteer all the time now was a newcomer a couple of months ago and looked up ways to help out with the draft. And she found us. So just finding what's going on in your community. If you have community events, if, for example, like Picklesburg is another thing that's big in Pittsburgh, like finding those big things and at that time really pushing volunteerism, whether that be on social media. I know like Google Ads and stuff can help you push that as well. So finding those busy moments and using that to your advantage.
Yeah. And Kobe mentioned that he likes to leverage local universities and colleges and on their, volunteer pages or even their job post
Yeah.
pages, you can post opportunities as well.
Not only that, but oftentimes they'll hold like volunteer days,
Hmm.
what we've benefited from. So like MLK Day, I think we all know is a huge day of service. And then they might have offshoots of that throughout the year, and kind of building that relationship early so they think of you during those future volunteer events as well.
Right, right. Yeah, and they always, almost all colleges have the volunteer fair, right, where you can
Mhm.
have your table and showcase too. So. I think that was all the questions that came through thus far. Yeah, that was a fantastic conversation. Hopefully, everyone here really enjoyed it as well. I certainly learned a lot. Before we let you go, though, let me just put one more thing on the screen. Make sure you guys all can see. Jordan was kind enough to share her contact information. And so if you ever want to reach out to her or want to chat, there's Jordan's LinkedIn here as well. It's clickable, so whenever you get the slides, you can just click. Similarly, you can always feel free to connect with me as well, right? I always obviously we host this for many reasons, but part of it is just so we can build our own community. And so yeah, this is Jordan's contact information along with mine.